Okay, welcome to another Inner Drive Leadership Newsletter video. And today we're joined by Caroline Spencer. And it's great to have someone here with so much experience and practical experience in leadership in schools. And as you know from the newsletter, one of the things that we're really keen to emphasize is this difference between leader and leadership. So the person and the process. And I think it's useful to split those when we're thinking about not only what makes great leadership, but how to develop really good leadership. So, if we start with this idea that great leaders have really high levels of self awareness, going back to your experience as kind of a primary head in two schools, what does being a self aware leader mean to you?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, a good question to start off. So I think from my point of view, self-awareness, I guess starts with this aim that most heads had, certainly I had, to be an authentic leader. And so I definitely felt I wanted to lead with authenticity. I don't think I was aware of that in the early days of my first headship, but I certainly started to reflect on that, maybe in situations where I felt less comfortable, less confident, realized that it was about authenticity. So for me, that really started with, I suppose, reflecting on my values and my beliefs, and starting to prioritize what kind of leader I wanted to be. And that became hugely helpful. School leadership is inevitably challenging. It's kind of on the job description.
Yeah,
And so it was really good for helping to shut out the noise on occasion. And so I think it helped me prioritize that kind of self-awareness of actually I want to lead with transparency. I want to lead with kindness. I want to make sure that I'm acting with integrity because my message isn't always going to land well, or I'm not always going to please everybody. But if I can go home and think about, okay, but I acted with integrity and I was driven by decision making that was about putting the children at
yeah,
the heart of what we're doing, then I'll be okay and it will help kind of get me through. So I think that's kind of the
absolutely.
starting point.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess it's super tricky in it because I think one of the challenges that, if we go really basic, you can't change what you don't acknowledge, and you can't
Yeah.
acknowledge what you're not aware of. So actually, any kind of change has to start with being aware of it. And I think one of the things that I used to kind of fear a lot as a senior leader and exec leader in schools was this idea that I thought one thing and other people thought something different and I didn't know what they thought.
Yes.
And actually, here I was thinking I was a great leader and I was doing all these great things. And then behind the scenes, people were saying, yeah, that was a bad idea. And so that really kind of used to stress me out. Um, I mean, let's shift on to process then. So we've got this idea that, you know, leadership is about the person. But of course, you can be a great person, you can be nice, you can be friendly, you can be empathetic, but that doesn't guarantee you having an impact as a leader. So if we think about the process of leadership or the things that leaders do, what do you think is one of the biggest lessons you learned, while you were a kind of, senior leader headship, about the process of leadership?
Um, so I think one of the biggest lessons I learned was to kind of accept that processes and systems can actually be a really useful mechanism for achieving any kind of desired outcome rather than viewing them as a hindrance. I think, as senior leaders, we have a lot of systems to follow, a lot of processes. So there can be a bit of sort of um, what's the word? Reluctance to embrace all of them. So
Yeah,
I think that's something that I really learned, and also the value of processes that can really kind of depersonalize things like feedback.
yeah,
So I think I don't know if it's a primary school thing because we typically have smaller staff bodies, but sometimes it can be a bit cozy,
yeah,
and there can be these assumptions that we're all lovely people and we're all doing a great job. Do we really need processes for CPD, processes for line management? But I found, particularly in terms of line management, those systems and processes were invaluable
yeah,
because it led to a sense of fairness. And certainly, in a school where underperformance perhaps might not be tackled, as well as being really negative for the children, it really can erode on staff morale. It really
Yeah.
chips away at staff morale. So I found making sure that there were really robust systems for things like line management incredibly helpful,
Yeah.
as well as identifying training needs and all of that sort of thing. And I think for quality assurance, the benefits are more obvious.
I
Um,
think, yeah, I think you've hit on something really important there, because with schools becoming more and more busy, and the variability of leadership being something that we want to kind of smooth out, really.
yeah.
Ideally, we want everybody to be as effective as possible, and one of the ways you can kind of reduce inconsistency or variability is to systematize things. And
Yeah.
someone once said, I don't know who it was, but sort of sustainable success is systematic.
Yeah,
you know
brilliant. I totally agree. Yeah.
because you kind of,
And from a consistency point of view,
yeah.
definitely you could really see and accountability, I
Mm.
think as well. I remember a very frustrated senior leader colleague coming to see me and saying, yeah, I don't understand what's gone wrong. I've delivered this inset, I've given really clear expectations, I've offered support, I've given resources, and some people are still not doing it.
Yeah.
And so we realized it's because there was no system to kind of consolidate and embed it. And once we added that kind of extra layer, then of course, it helps people prioritize, I guess, as well, doesn't it? Yeah.
That's fascinating. Well, if we finish then with this idea that there's a theory which people will be familiar with called emotional intelligence, which kind of straddles both the idea of self-awareness and self-management, as well as social kind of awareness and social management. And so, um, what role do you think emotional intelligence plays in being a successful leader?
In my opinion, it's really key to being successful, or I think it can make you even more successful as a leader. As you were saying, it sort of starts with self-awareness. So I guess it helps to focus on areas that we can prioritize for our own growth as leaders. And certainly, I think having that emotional intelligence, reflecting on situations that didn't go as well as I thought they would or I felt they should have done, helped me to prioritize what I needed to work on. And I think you were talking earlier about the fact that we're human beings and we're all different. So I know what motivates me, and I can communicate my values to my staff, but that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean that they're motivated by the same thing. So I guess being sympathetic to that, but also helping to create common goals so that we are kind of motivated by the same thing. Hopefully, doing our best for the children in our school is a top priority for everybody. But it's also appreciating, and this is something that I learned personally, that it's not just about the what in terms of delivering a message. I certainly felt that I fared much better as a leader on those occasions where I'd invested time and thought about how I was going to deliver a message.
Yeah.
And even when, actually. And, we all know with certain colleagues, if I ask them to do this at this time of day or on this day of the week when they've got no non-contact, I'm probably not going to get as positive a reaction as if I chose, a time when it was a bit easier for them. So one of the things that I started doing with staff is to say, is now a good time to give you some feedback? And I'd say it with a smile on my face, and I'd say it in a nice casual way. And I found that really helped, I guess, to give them a sense of control as well. But from an emotional intelligence point of view, I feel like those conversations where I gave a little bit more thought to my own delivery and how it might be received were much more successful. And it's also, I think, I really felt that as a leader, it's not a bad thing to be human.
Right.
And it's great to show empathy.
Yeah.
And there are times where we have to be really clear and really direct. And there are times where we can be human, and actually that's really appreciated by staff as well.
Love that. Yeah.
Um, so I think emotional intelligence is can be kind of the difference between being a good leader and a great leader, I think.
Well, there we go. What a great way to finish the idea of be human, and that emotional intelligence could be the difference. That there is a kind of a distinction between people and process, leader and leadership. That it starts with self-awareness and then into self-regulation. And ultimately, if we want success to be sustainable, then we need to be kind of systematic. Well, thanks ever so much for your time. I'm sure
Thanks,
the
Chris.
listeners will really enjoy this, and yeah, we'll talk again soon.
Thanks very much. Take care. Bye.